Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are 1 month closer to the 2024 election, the seismic battle between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, May of 2024, going into the summer. And guys, in this video, I'm going to be analyzing a potential best case scenario for Donald Trump. How many electoral votes can he potentially get? We see the Rasmussen poll come out, Trump plus 12. Yes, it's a Republican pollster, but these numbers are crazy. What's going on right now with college campuses, 80% reject it, and it's all far left socialist kids who come out and say, yes, we hate capitalism, we hate America, we support Palestine. This is only going to hurt Biden more. You see videos at these college campuses where you've got people on the right, people on the far left, both chanting that they hate Joe Biden. And the number one biggest issue right now for Biden when I talk about a potential best case scenario for Donald Trump. First, let's just look at the map. This is what I would say the map is. And I'm going to probably change some things as we go along when it comes to a true best case scenario. Some of these states, though, no matter how bad Biden is, whether he gets worse, whether he gets better in terms of his approval rating, it's been reported, it's been documented, Biden has the worst approval rating in the history of presidents dating back to when we started really tracking it by about 6 or 7 points. It's out of control bad, and it's only going to get worse with these protests because these are kids that are left, and Biden's really tried to play both sides when it comes to Israel-Palestine. But when you look at this map, you've got Nevada, Arizona, you've got your pure swing states. I'm including Minnesota as a swing state. There's been a few polls. It's very close. I know the narrative is Biden won it easily in 2020. Hillary, it was very close in 2016. Trump made a late push. He almost won. And I think right now, based off of the underlying metrics between Trump and Biden, I just saw a recent update to the likability. And Trump's just so much more likable. There's actually polls that are coming out now admitting, no, Trump's actually positive in terms of how likable he is. All of these charges, the trials are completely backfiring. And now Trump's kind of treating it like it's his little event, campaign events. He's going out in New York City delivering pizza. There's polls coming out of New York. He's trailing by single digits there. Could New York possibly be in play? It's very unlikely, but for a best case scenario, maybe it could be possible. Now, when it comes to this best case scenario, we have to look at a few different things. Obviously, Biden, 538 reporting approval under 40%. Real Clear Politics, it is over 40%, but here you can see 39% approval. And do we have the comparison to Trump? We're not going to be able to see the comparison to Trump. But if you compare him to Trump at this time, which is basically, what day is it? May 3rd. Like if you compare Trump May 3rd of 2020 versus Biden May 3rd of 2024, Trump is about 3 or 4 points in terms of approval better. And you may say, oh, that's close. It's so crazy considering 90% of the mainstream media, where most Americans shape their opinions, it's changing now, but that's normally how it is. 90% of the mainstream media hates Trump's guts and they're pro-Biden. And Biden still, with all of that support from the mainstream propagandists, has a worse approval rating than Trump. Trump went into the election in 2020 significantly more disliked than Biden. This spread was about 13 points because of how low Trump was compared to Biden actually having a decent approval. It's completely flipped. It's like a 16, 17 point swing. So Trump only loses by 40K in 2020. If you look at the swing states and how the actual math works, they'll say, oh, Biden won by the popular vote, whatever, 4 or 5 points. But in reality, it was very close. Based off of these underlying metrics, this should be a very comfortable, right now, a very comfortable Trump win. And I think with the lag that we're seeing from the polls, where all the polls that are being taken right now, I think are going to really kill Biden because of these protests. They're going to come out next week. So the bad stuff for Biden really hasn't even come out yet. And you can take a look at the stuff that's being reported. The recent poll, Trump plus 12. Yeah, they're going to cope and say, oh, it's a Republican pollster. But even CNN has come out and admitted, no, Trump, plus 9 in terms of a general it's insane. There's no way Trump's plus 9. You can see some other polls, but right now, Trump really trending up. I don't know. This is the max? No, this is, I don't know why this is doing this. This is very weird. But recently, Trump has started to trend more. Even Quinnipiac, who is very liberal, they've got it as a tie. We'll have to see whenever their update comes. But either way, Trump now, in terms of popular vote, when Biden was surging, He never overtook Trump. Not that it really matters, the popular vote, whatever. As long as Trump's close to Biden, he should be good for the election. He's sitting plus 3.5. This date in 2020, this was really before Trump's approval rating cratered because of the reaction to the shutdowns and the economy getting destroyed with the pandemic. Biden was still 5.3, and it climbed after that. This was when things were good for Trump. Biden was still 5.3. So Trump plus 3.2, that's an 8-point swing. Hillary in 2016, I don't know if you can really use 2016. You're going back a little bit, but Hillary was plus 6.2. And this does a good job of illustrating how if you're doing videos like I'm doing where we're talking about going into an election cycle in 2016, undoubtedly Hillary was the favorite throughout the entirety of the election cycle. It was not close. In 2020, even with Trump being an incumbent, yes, people were more wary because Trump won in 2016 against all odds. People still said, and the polls suggested, the Democrat Biden was a big favorite. It's not happening in 2024. It's just not. You look at any of these numbers and you can go state by state. And I guess that's what I'll do. I will go state by state and look at these polls because you can interact with it. You click on Nevada, Trump sitting plus 4.5. I don't see right now, based on any of the underlying metrics, Biden beating Trump in a state like Nevada. So when it comes to me predicting, I would say Trump would win Nevada. Whether you want to make it, darker or lighter, we'll just go with light red for a state like Nevada. I would say pretty clean cut at that point. Move on to Arizona. Trump sitting plus 5. Very similar numbers, very similar spread with a constant Trump lead. The approval rating, it all plays into it. When you're that bad in terms of approval and you're Biden, even though they'll say, well, Trump is so polarizing, he's the only one that could lose to Biden when Biden's got this bad of an approval rating. But if you actually look at the numbers in 2020, this is not how approvals worked in 2020. It wasn't like Biden had a historically bad approval rating going in to the 2020 election. Now, he wasn't an incumbent, but he had a lot better of an approval rating in 2020 than he does now, and he barely won in 2020. So a state like Arizona, they'll say, well, abortion, Trump's completely taken that off the table by saying it's a state's decision, and then they want to say, well, they're going to get people energized because of that issue in Arizona. I don't think it's going to be a huge problem. I think Trump's going to take Arizona as well. Remember how close it was in 2020? Fox News called it early, and then Biden did end up winning it by like a point or whatever. Moving on to Minnesota. If this is a best case scenario, Minnesota, we need a lot more polling. And we need polling specifically with RFK involved. Now, there's been a lot of speculation. Does RFK help Trump? It's hard to say. I would say slightly help. The other thing that I wanted to mention when it comes to Cornel West, you see a lot of these people that are maybe more further left that voted for Biden, inner city people. Right now they're protesting. They love Palestine. They're going to feel very disenfranchised, and they've come out and they've said they don't like Biden. Of course, there's going to be the fear-mongering from the Democratic Party. Trump's Hitler. He's terrible. He's going to murder 30 trillion people. But think about it. If we can maybe fund Cornel, and I would actually have Republicans fund Cornel West, prop him up, get him in the news. He's more radical. Throw your vote out Cornel West's way. Biden is not helping Palestine. He's funding Israel. If I was the Republicans, I'd be saying that, and you'd get a lot of these idiot people who are protesting right now to possibly throw their votes away and vote for Cornel West, which would hurt Biden because remember, Georgia, the big numbers he ran up in inner cities. If we're going best case scenario right now, Minnesota, it's a lot of projection, but I would say Minnesota would be a state that Trump would win. Next, you take a look at Wisconsin. Very, very close. Obviously, I'm not going to continue to go over Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. They're all extremely close. If the underlying metrics and the underlying numbers continue to suggest the same thing, I would say Trump wins all three of these states. So you could look at them and say Trump plus about 2. I mean, obviously you want to be leading, but plus 2 in terms of polls right now is not a ton. Trump plus 1 with Biden leading a few different polls. Again, we're going best case scenario, so obviously Trump would win all three of these states, just like he won in 2016 and then barely lost in 2020. And even look at this. Back in 2020 at this time, Biden was sitting plus 4.5. Hillary was sitting plus 7. Trump is now plus 1. So there's been a clear shift, at least in terms of polling. Now you can say, well, they're just polling Trump voters better. I don't really think that's the case. I guess we'll see. Even if they are polling Trump voters better, this is still good news. Trump being +1, although again, it's very close. It's not like you can say he's definitely going to win Pennsylvania. If we got polls that said Trump was up by 5, 6, 4, 7, then yes, you would start saying, all right, this is trending towards Trump. But right now, they're very close. Obviously, Biden's approval rating, it's all going to play into it. And that's why Trump would win a state like that. If you're talking about best case scenario, I don't know if we've got any New Hampshire polls. Do we have any New Hampshire polls? Biden +8. I'm not going to, well, I won't give Trump, I will not give Trump New Hampshire. When you look at Maine, you know what? I'll give Trump Maine. I think it's possible, just the entire, I'm not going to decide it into districts. I'm just going to give Trump slightly in the entire state. They really got to do away with districts. Same thing with Nebraska. By the way, you look at Nebraska, the one district, Trump lost it in 2020 by about 7 points. I would give him it fully if we're going best case scenario. And then you're looking at Georgia. So that's another clear swing state right now. Trump +3.8. I thought it was a little bit more than that. But still, pretty much every poll has Trump taking Georgia back after he lost it very slightly. And we would go Trump there. North Carolina is another one. You go Trump. You take a look at the recent polls in North Carolina. They suggest Trump a decent lead. You look back in 2020, Trump was leading this by just 0.3. It was basically tied. Hillary was up by 1 in 2016. The polls were crazy wrong in 2016. They thought Hillary, people were saying Hillary maybe in Iowa, maybe in Texas. And now we're kind of talking about Trump with, Minnesota and Virginia. But just in general, also Virginia would be the other state. There's just not enough polling right now, especially including all of the candidates. It's kind of similar to Minnesota, but Biden has a few more points. But if we're going best case scenario with what happened with Glenn Youngkin in 2021, I would go Trump there. So now you're up to 339. But how bad could it get for Biden? Could you be looking at a state like New Mexico possibly being in play for Trump? Could you be looking at a state like New Jersey, where we recently saw a poll about a month ago where Biden was only up by 5 or 6? Now you start looking at some of these other states like a New Mexico, +8, +10 for Biden. I don't think Biden would lose it, but if you're talking about best case, New York's an interesting one that we saw this single-digit poll, Biden +9, +10. Again, Biden losing it seems basically impossible based on the fact that it's New York with New York City. Obviously, there's a lot of conservative parts we've seen with the midterms, but there are conservative parts in every state, don't get me wrong. Those are states you start thinking about. Do you start looking at a state like Colorado? I mean, those are interesting numbers. Emerson with a poll in late January, Biden only +6. Any of these other states they're big leaps for me. Oregon, I know Oregon is very conservative, especially away from Portland. They hate Portland. There's only 2 polls with Biden up by 10 to 16. So, if it gets really bad for Biden, you might be able to stretch it and say something like New Mexico goes to Trump. New Hampshire would definitely go to Trump in that case. And then you look at a state like New Jersey, you look at a state like Colorado, Oregon. It just seems very unlikely any of those states. New York, Illinois, there's no chance. But I mean, in an absolute best case scenario, it's unlikely, but it would be probably something like that. That would get Trump to 380. Then you go with New York there. That gets Trump over 400. So that would be over 400 for Trump. And I think pretty much all these other states, these dimple states, it's not going to happen. There's no way. I mean, Maryland, if New Jersey, maybe Maryland, but it's unlikely. Washington State, California, it's not happening. Hawaii, it's not happening. But in general, Trump's best case scenario, realistically, I think would probably be, there's no way he would win New York. At least you wouldn't think it. It would probably be around 350. I think his absolute ceiling is like 350, 360. Again, maybe there's something that comes out that's just crazy. Maybe Biden embarrasses himself during a debate. He can't talk. Then you're talking about more and more Americans realizing it. And the only places that would still vote for Biden, it would be like in Illinois. It would be like a California, District of Columbia. They're just not going to vote Republican. There's zero chance of it, no matter who the Republican candidate is. It could be the second coming of Abraham Lincoln. And if he's a Republican, they'll call him racist. It's just the reality of it. So best case, I think Trump 350, 360. If things go catastrophically bad for Biden, maybe it's even it gets even worse. But right now, every swing state. I mean, they have it as 219 to 215 in terms of safe, which I think is very conservative. You know, North Carolina being a pure swing state, all these other states. I think North Carolina is a lean Trump. Georgia is a lean Trump. These three are true swing states. Minnesota, you could argue based on history, is a lean Biden, but we have to get more polling. Arizona and Nevada, based on recent history, you could say swing states because they were leaning Biden. Now Trump's leading them. You can't just give them to Trump. But I would say Arizona, lean Trump. Nevada, you could argue right now is a pure swing state. But also, if we're getting like 10 straight polls and Trump's up by 5 or 6 points in all of them, it has to be a lean Trump. Now, if Biden starts trending upwards, you can say they're swing states, but just based on what we've seen, I would say that. And then Nebraska's 2nd district, has there been a poll that's come out about it? This is what Biden, so Trump beat Hillary in 2016 by 2 points, and then Biden won by 7. So I could very easily see Trump taking this back. I know they were trying to make Nebraska under one umbrella, like a winner take all. And hopefully they do that. And hopefully they do it with Maine as well, by the way. Make it statewide winner take all. I don't know why those two states are different. It's stupid. In terms of predictions, it's dumb. In terms of reality, it's dumb when you've got all the other 48 states operating under a winner take all type model. But either way, I think you're looking at 350, 360 electoral votes, something like that. Oregon, it's just very hard to see something like that happen. New Mexico, I think, is another one. Probably not. New Jersey, probably not. So you're looking at like 353 in an absolute best case scenario. Virginia going to Trump. Minnesota going to Trump. Those would be kind of the two extra states that would go to Trump. New Hampshire's only 4 electoral votes. You could, 349 versus 353, either one. But right now, as long as Biden's approval rating is still this bad, and we've seen it's maintained negative, 16, negative 17 approval into the 30s for, since almost mid last year. I would say since like October of last year. He had kind of it's been bad for a while. It got really bad, and then he brought it back. Maybe that was after the midterms because people liked that Democrats overperformed in the midterms. But it's been a stagnantly horrible approval rating for Biden, and I highly doubt it's going to get any better. Do Americans have a favorable opinion of Donald Trump? So Trump right now sitting minus 11 in terms of favorability, and that is just so huge. You may say, well, that's bad. No, for Trump, that's actually good in comparison to Biden. If he's more likable than Biden, based on how, unconventional he is as a politician, it is huge news, especially when you compare it to how the metrics were in 2020. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.